It's done this a few times. Okay, hello? Yeah, that's coming through now.
Test,
Wow,
test, 1, 2, 3.
that's really great. Can you guys hear us now? I'm getting very pissed off at this this mixer.
Test, 1, 2, 3. All right.
Yep, they got us. Okay. Thank you so much for the warning. And again, if we drop out at any time during the run, let me know. I will be watching chat. I will be there. So what I was saying to Radical here is we've actually done this before, and I kind of had just sort of realized that in passing yesterday, was he and I both did commentary for the restream of the Tokaigi WASSHOI in 2015.
Yeah.
Which was also a white label run by fufufu, and that was an incredibly tense run. If any of you guys are interested and haven't already seen that, that is an amazing watch.
It is very good. It's on Icarus's channel. So restream of, like you said, WASSHOI at what is it?
Tokaigi? I think?
Tokaigi, yeah.
I may not be pronouncing that right.
That was a great year. That was really fun to see. Because that was like Daioujou, that was TGM3.
Yeah.
And there's something else there too. Oh, Darius Gaiden Extra.
Yes.
It's like every stage.
The super, super long one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very exciting. And this will be exciting too. This will be the same kind of deal.
Yeah. So that run, he actually, he died in 2-2. And he actually did not get the extend on 2-2. So there was this very tense moment where he was rolling through all of 2-2 and then 2-3 and just like on his last life, like no mistakes are possible at this stage.
Yeah.
And yet he pulled it out and got a clear, and what a spectacular clear at that. So I think it was only a one miss to Hibachi at White Label, which is just
It's insane. It's really insane. So should I give off a little discussion about like what White Label is and what Daioujou is?
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with this game or with the Dodonpachi games in general, Dodonpachi is a series of Japanese bullet hell shooters. They're characterized by very, very dense patterns of projectiles that come down the screen, very small hitboxes, and a scoring system that revolves around chaining. Essentially, the idea is that if you kill enemies within a certain length of time of each other, you will have a counter that builds up. So you kill one enemy, it's just one chain, but then you kill another one within, I believe it's a quarter second, and then it'll move up to 2 chain, and then 3 chain, and 4 chain, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then as the series progresses, this mechanic got very dramatically refined. So in Dodonpachi Daioujou, which is the game that we'll be covering today, there's the introduction of a hyper mechanic, and the hyper increases the amount of chain hits that you gain per enemy, and it also increases the amount of time that you have to connect your chain from one enemy to another.
Yes. And basically, that's Daioujou in a nutshell. It's basically a game where you chain stuff and you also dodge stuff. You chain it. This is, I'd say, the first time in the series where you could chain almost every single stage all the way through.
Well, it was possible in Dodonpachi, but people didn't really figure it out for a very long time. The strategies to do it are extremely complicated. There's, I believe, the secret cults for Donpachi and Dodonpachi high-level replays. But DOJ was one of the first games where we really got these like very fancy, like full stage chain routes, and some of the links can be extremely complicated because the hyper system allows you to extend your chain not only by lengthening the amount of time that you have to actually connect from one enemy to another, but when you activate the hyper, it also refills your chain gauge.
Yes.
So you get an extra, quarter second. The other thing to talk about is that there are 2 different types of shot in the Dodonpachi games. There's the kind of rapid shot, which is usually kind of a widespread machine gun, and then there's a laser. And the laser allows you to build chain against larger enemies. So like a big, tank or something.
Mike's a bit louder.
Mike's a bit louder. Thank you, Frenetic. And Nasty Wolverine, yes, these are SM57s, or technically Chinese knockoffs thereof. Radical has the real deal, but...
I'm sorry?
Test
1, 2, 3.
This is the real Mike.
The real Mike, yeah.
This one is a Chinese knockoff.
Oh.
But they sound pretty much the same. So right now... Sorry, what?
Oh, sorry. Just excuse me for a second. I'm just.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, so right now the main stage is doing just finishing up an indie game awards ceremony of sorts. So we are just kind of trying to do a brief introduction, get ready for this insanity.
Yeah, get ready for this run. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the basic system of what Dodonpachi is, but what exactly makes this what is white label? What are we going to be seeing today?
All right, I'll get into the differences of that. So, the white label is the original iteration of Dodonpachi Daioujou. Are we going or? That's something else, I think.
That is that's some kind of indie game.
Okay, sorry. We have a little screen of what's going on behind us. It's not. Anyways, to repeat, what white label is the first iteration of Daioujou, Dodonpachi Daioujou. So it's the original, I guess, game. Basically, this was supposed to be, I think, the last cave game.
It was supposed to be the last Dodonpachi game because Daioujou, I think the translation is blissful death.
Blissful death.
That's the official translation.
Yeah.
So the idea was like, okay, we've made 2 games in this series. People wanted another one, so we made a 3rd game. Now let this series die peacefully.
Yes.
And it's kind of a joke because it's a famously very challenging game.
Yeah.
So it's die peacefully but surrounded by bullets and completely insane patterns.
But anyways, to basically just explain what it is, Daioujou, in essence, the main real difference between the original and this newer version called Black Label is that in the newer version, we're not seeing Black Label. In the newer version, when you loop, as in when you clear stage 5 for the first time, you get an option to keep continuing the game to the second loop. It gives you a prompt saying, I think the translation is vaguely you're about to see carnage or something. Well, not like that, but basically you want to turn back now because it's just about to get real.
Yeah.
And it's yes or no. And what they mean by real is that they take away the suspense. What do they take away? Okay.
We're good.
So the suspense is that they take away all of your lives in the first loop. In the second loop. So once you start back in loop 2, stage 1, you have nothing. If you die, the game's over.
That's in the original version, in the version we're going to be seeing today.
This is the version we're seeing today. So that's actually one of my main concerns is if fufufu makes one mistake in stage 1, that's it. The demonstration's over unless they let him do it again.
Yeah.
So it's spooky. It's a very kind of different kind of challenge, I guess, In a sense, it does kind of make your first loop not matter too much in terms of lives, because if you satisfy a loop condition, which is you get all these bees in 3 stages, you're on to the second loop no matter what. So you could die all you want and be fine. You do get your points get tallied up, your lives get tallied up at the end of the first loop.
Yeah.
But so that's really the main difference. The Black Label, your lives carry through.
Yeah. So to expand a little bit. Oh, sorry.
I was just forgot to mention that I did say you lose all your lives, but you do get them back. But this requires you to not make a mistake throughout the stage, as in do not die, do not bomb, and if you manage to succeed in that, you'll get a life back at the end of the stage.
Yeah. So to clarify a little bit, when we talk about loop conditions, essentially the idea is that you can't, just simply completing the game is not quite enough to make it to the loop. You have to fulfill certain requirements, and I believe there's 3 different ways to do it. You can either get 3 bee perfect stages, which is where you collect all of the bees in the stage without dying.
Yeah.
Or you bomb less than 2 times in the entirety of the game leading up to the end of stage 5.
Yep.
Or you die less than 2 times in the entire of the game leading up to stage 5. So what happens in White Label is if you meet those requirements and you make it into the loop, all of your remaining stock is stripped away, and then you have the opportunity to earn them back by either no missing or no bombing the stages. So you can technically bomb, but it's still, it does hurt you. So really the 2-1 is crazy. if there is a death in 2-1, if there's a major mistake in 2-1, that's it. That the run is over.
Yeah.
He can afford to bomb once in 2-1, and he will still get the life back at the end of the stage, and that'll give him some breathing room. But as Iconoclast is saying here in the chat, dying in any stage before 2-5 in White Label is pretty much the end of a credit for a normal player. And when we say normal, I mean this is a very, very hard game, and just getting into the loop alone in White Label is quite an accomplishment already. So normal is just, it's already talking about a pretty high level of skill with this game. But Fufufu in the Tokaigi run that we commented, he died in both 2-2 and 2-4, and was still able to pull a clear out. Let's see. Yes. So other changes with between the versions. Black Label also has more frequent and more consistent hyper drops. So the hyper works in this game. You build up hyper gauge over time. When that gauge fills up, a medal drops from the top of the screen. If you collect that, you're then able to hyper. And the hyper effectively replaces the ability to bomb. But in the original release, in White Label, which is what we're about to see here, according to some interviews, the hyper drop system was slightly bugged, which was corrected in the Black Label release. So it's... There's a number of other balancing changes here and there. People in chat, SMCSGG is mentioning smaller hitboxes. There's a larger max bomb bonus, which is actually very significant for scoring in Black Label, since you really don't want to bomb at all in that game if you can help it. The max bomb bonus adds up very dramatically over time. Whereas in White Label, it exists, but it's inconsequential. There's also some patterns that have been rebalanced between White Label and Black Label.
Yeah, like for example, in some patterns, some of the bullets are smaller in a sense. Like you'll see this a lot in like stage 3, stage 4. Some bullets are smaller, some bullets are a little bit slower. I mean, I just lied. You're not going to see it. You're not going to know what the difference is. But basically, stage 3 is a bit more aggressive. Stage 4 has some bigger patterns, has bigger bullets in their patterns, and stuff like that. Basically, everything is just more aggressive.
Yes.
Everyone's more out to kill you.
In theory.
They give you a break in Black Label. They really do.
Yeah, so Black Label, from my understanding, and this could be incorrect, but my understanding is that the idea behind Black Label was that it would start off easier than White Label, but that the changes to the way that the dynamic difficulty works, the hyper rank would scale more dramatically towards the end of the game. So it would have a smoother curve in the early game, but then spike up much more at the high level.
Yeah.
However, I think in practice, it just makes a much easier game overall, is kind of the consensus that people have come to.
I'm not sure. It depends on how you play it. I think maybe for clearing, definitely Black Label is the easier way to go.
Yeah.
In fact, many of our Western players have started with clearing Black Label first and then moving on to White Label.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just looking at myself, like I've made it to 2-3, I think maybe even 2-4 in Black Label, and I've never even won all White Label.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a much more challenging game.
I think a person who could tell us the experience if hyper rank is actually harder in Black Label is Iconoclast. Just to not to shut you out of here, Iconoclast, but he has gotten a major score recently. I think about 3 bill.
Yeah, I think it was over 3 bill.
Daioujou Black Label, which is impressive. It's extremely impressive. Hats off to you, man.
Yeah.
Daioujou is his game. He is the Western player for Daioujou.
So Nasty Wolverine in chat saying 1 loop Black Label is easier, 2 loop Black Label is harder because of hyper rank. Yeah, I think that's the theory. I cannot confirm that myself, but.
I mean, I'm sorry, just to answer Banana Max question. I meant 2 loop if you're like using hypers like constantly, like actually living and stuff like that, like actually living through hypering, scoring, doing all that stuff. Yeah, hyper rank in Black Label gets higher in Black Label.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess we should talk a little bit about what hyper rank even is actually.
Okay.
So when you hyper, you get a number of advantages immediately. Your shots do more damage. They cover a wider portion of the screen. They get you more hits. There's also a moment of invincibility at the start that you can use and abuse against many of the bosses or harder patterns in the game, for example.
Yeah.
But the consequence for that is that every time you hyper, it increases the game difficulty.
Yes.
Both in a short term, while the hyper is active, the bullets are much faster, and then when the hyper ends after a few seconds, the overall game bullet speed is slightly increased.
Yeah.
And it's also the fire rate of enemies. So one thing that you'll notice is that enemies in later stages will be firing much, much, much more often than the same enemies in earlier stages. And often that's a consequence of this dynamic difficulty scaling up over the course of the game.
Yeah, basically, if you're hypering, basically enemies will shoot bullets of like lines of bullets. You're not going to be seeing. It basically requires you to route correctly.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be able to like make a break for it, make some like insane dodges or stuff like that. You have to plan everything out.
So one of the rebalance changes that was made between the two games is the rate at which this dynamic of difficulty increases. So in White Label, it's a much more pronounced step each time you use a hyper, which means that high scoring runs reach this highest difficulty very quickly. Whereas Black Label, it's a more gradual progression, but I believe that it's designed to ramp up more highly in the later stages of the game, especially in Loop 2. And it seems that experience is corroborating that, according to Iconoclast and other players in the chat.
We have sound, by the way, right? People are answering us, right?
Yes, we should have sound here.
Okay.
Again, if we don't have sound, let me know. Let me know.
They're not gonna know what we're saying.
Yeah, that would be.
Yo, if we have sound, say yes.
Yeah, that would be not good.
Texted me saying that we don't have sound. I don't know if she just. I know we didn't have sound earlier.
Yeah, it could be left over from earlier.
Audio is fine.
Right.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. All right, let's see what's going on with the mainstream.
Mother, turn your phone on.
Oh, they're just doing a sponsor reel. Man, the aesthetic of this Stunfest is something else. All right. So yeah, it looks like they are in the final stages of prep. It got pushed back a little bit further. So it got moved forward by a half hour and then pushed back by like 15 minutes or something. The schedule here's in a little bit of flux right now, but looks like we're in plenty of time. So.
Sorry.
No problem. Yes, Bananamatic, some full chains. So when we talk about a full chain, what we mean is that you're chaining the entire stage from start to finish. So every enemy that you're killing throughout the entire stage is contributing to your chain counter. And in Black Label, many of the chains are substantially easier. The one that comes to mind immediately is the Stage 3 chain, which is, for a long time, it was thought to be impossible to full chain Stage 3 in Daioujou. And then it was discovered that in Black Label, you could do a very precise set of hypers in order to connect the first part of the stage before the mid-boss into the mid-boss and then out of the mid-boss.
Yes, yeah.
And then even more recently, I think this was only about 3 years ago when we did the Tokaigi coverage. It was only like a couple months before that it had been discovered that you could actually do that in White Label as well. But the difficulty in White Label is much higher because the mid-boss no longer drops these little pods that you can chain off of in Black Label. So.
Yeah, it's some TAS level shit, so. Tool assisted. I'll still be surprised if he gets it.
Yeah.
I'll still be going crazy if he gets it.
I don't know if his routes include it.
I didn't say that, Banana. Yeah, 1 to 3 you can't chain. In DDP at least.
Yeah, I don't think we said that you could. I think we said you could full chain some stages in DDP, but not all.
No, yeah, what I said was like I think Daioujou is the first game where like you could actually full chain every single stage.
Yeah. Although again,
we didn't know.
We didn't know that when the game first came out.
Yeah.
Because with White
Stage
Label,
3 was a little messed up.
Yeah.
But it is possible. There's a will, there's a way.
So the 1-3 mid-boss in White Label doesn't drop the pods at all, sort of. It does drop the pods, but only during its attack phases. When you actually destroy the mid-boss, the pods blow up along with it. So the only way to chain through in White Label... and SMC saying they also don't give you chain meter. Okay. So the only way to chain through in White Label is to hyper into the mid-boss and then get another hyper to drop during the mid-boss and then hyper again out of the mid-boss, which is possible, but the timing on it is extremely strict, and it also requires very specific management of your hyper drops.
Yeah.
So I guess that's something we can get into is we can... One of the important parts of playing DOJ at the high level, and especially playing White Label at the high level, is that the hyper drop timings actually become very important. Since when you fill up a full hyper, the moment where the hyper is actually spawned and drops down, it will actually clear all the bullets on the screen. And the rate at which you get hypers is dependent in large part on how you're scoring and how you're moving across the stage. There are hidden Bs in the stage that you can collect that will increase your hyper gauge proportionate to how much chain you have. I believe it's 1% per 20 hits with a maximum of 35% or something, which you get at about 200 hits.
Yeah. By the way, I think we got some stuff going on.
Yeah, there's something going on.
By the way, did you guys see this background, dude? This background is so ridiculous. This is so...
Yeah, there's... Okay, here we go. This is still the demo play, but let's...
Oh yeah, just to remind everyone too that he's going to be using the Type B ship, which is the wide variant.
Yeah.
The wide shot variant.
So that is that's something to talk about, is the differences between the different ship types. The very short Cliff Notes version is that there's two different ships in White Label. Oh, hang on. I want DOJ. Yeah, there we go. There's two different ships in both in Daioujou in general. So the red ship, the Type A, generally has a more narrow shot and
you can see right
a
here.
faster movement speed. Yeah, you can see it right here. So that's that laser we were talking about.
Yeah, you see it. There.
Oh, yeah, this here. Here is the, now it's wide shot, laser again in a second. Yeah. So the Type A ship is generally faster and has a narrower shot angle, and the Type B ship, which is what we're going to be seeing fufufu playing, is a wider shot and a slightly slower movement speed. The hitboxes are slightly different, and I believe there was a link in the... I believe this link that Nasty Wolverine just posted in the chat is the hitbox image. I don't know if that's completely correct, but it's definitely close-ish.
If I open it up, is it going to screw anything up?
I wouldn't risk it.
Okay. But if that's the hitbox image listed, then yes.
The hitboxes, I would agree with Bananamatic here. I don't know whether this is true, but the hitboxes in White Label feel consistently bigger than the hitboxes in Black Label. So other changes, there are actually three different subtypes for the ships. There's a shot type, which powers up your ship's shot, like a wider angle, and you power it up more quickly at the cost of having a weaker laser and a slower movement speed. You also get 6 bombs total. There is a laser type, which has a stronger laser at the cost of a slightly weaker shot, and a slightly faster movement speed than the shot type. You get a max of 4 bombs total. Fufufu will be using the expert type, which powers up both and has a maximum of 2 bombs. And here we go.
Looks like we're starting off. Yes, sudden.
All right. So, stage 1 in White Label. Generally, the peak you'll see here is roughly 800 hits over the course of the whole stage. We may see a bit more than that. But anywhere above about 30 million is considered a very good score for White Label. So here, again, using this laser to hold the chain on larger enemies, using the shot on smaller enemies because it builds more meter that way. He's already uncovered one hidden B there and another on the other side. So
he's delaying the collection because the higher your chain is when you collect a B, it applies as a bonus. It's
applied as a bonus, and also hypers will drop more because you'll gain more percent. So you see he's already spawned his first hyper, and this is very, very good timing for that first hyper. This is pretty much as early as you can get it in White Label. So when he's hypering, you'll note that his chain is building much faster. He's also able to hold it for longer. And one thing that he'll be doing a lot with this hyper is attacking enemies right before they're coming onto the screen. So as they're in this kind of very upper part of the screen, their hitboxes are very slightly projected downwards, and they're not actually vulnerable during that period. So you can often get right up close to them and get extra hits off of them at that point. This route is generally pretty familiar to me. Most of the connections that he's making here are pretty standard for white label replays. So about 700 hits right now. That is ahead of par. So he's definitely doing quite well. Probably will end with 830 or so.
Yeah.
Which is about what we saw from him at Tokagi WASSHOI 2015. 840. So again, each B you pick up increases your score by 1,000 points times the number of hits you have, and then the last B is that times 2, and then will, if you got a B perfect, if you completed the whole stage without dying and collected all the Bs, will increase the value of Bs going forward from 1,000 to 2,000, then 3,000.
You're going to really see what hyper rank means here. He's going to be hypering the boss here, which is going to increase the aggressiveness of the attacks and the speed.
And this
You'll
boss,
especially see it here.
This boss is very scary in white label. Compared to black label, these patterns are dramatically easier in black label.
Yes, dramatically easier.
So what he's going to try to do here is damage the 2 pods of the boss relatively equally, bringing it all down kind of evenly. And now when the pods start spinning around, he's going to try to destroy them as opposed to the center of the boss to get those 2 hyper drops. Then he's going to wait for the boss to start shooting and then kill it, and the bullets that it's fired will turn into stars like you just saw there. Now what he's probably going to do, based on my understanding of his routes from the past, he has 2 hypers in stock, which you can see in the upper corner there, but he's probably going to hyper right away and save those hypers for later in the stage when they'll be worth more.
That's interesting. Usually you collect those 2 and then you delay your chain a little bit.
Yes.
And start with 4 and then end with 4 at the end.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
So his strategy seems to be to use 2 at the beginning, 2 in the middle, and then 5 at the end.
Wow.
But we'll see. I think he dropped his chain in 1-2 during his Tokagi run.
I dropped it here too.
Oh, well, yeah, there you go. It's a very hard section to link if you don't have hyper. So no surprise there. It's already an excellent run. 36 million at this point in the game is absolutely nothing to laugh at. So what he's going to do here is start cutting over to the side, probably try to grab that hyper. Yep, and then there's a B right there that he just picked up. It's hard to see. Chaining this part without hyper is relatively straightforward, but there's a couple moments here around this big flower pot thing that you can drop pretty easily if you're not paying attention. That B pickup is a little bit early. Normally you'd wait for it to be further down on the screen. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is behind that. Possibly a timing thing. So here, the important part about this is to save killing those tanks on the side. Notice that he killed 2 of them, then 1, then the power-up carrier, then the other 2. Now here you saw he was right up on top of that mid-boss the whole time it was coming up. That's because when you pick up a power-up, your laser actually shrinks back down to 0 and then comes back out. And
which can break the chain, yeah.
Yeah, which can break the chain, even though that's only a few frames. When you're lasering, your chain value is held at a very, very low level. So you need to be right on top of things in order to carry it next. So
he's slightly delaying his shot here just so he can get as many hits as in the hyper.
Yeah, and the other thing he's doing is riding the hitboxes of these big bunkers as they're going off the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, on the bottom left you can see.
Yeah, right there.
He's hitting it without destroying it to get the extra hits.
Yeah, so once those things are most of the way off the screen, their hitbox deactivates, like it's no longer vulnerable, but you can still score hits off of them using the aura around your ship that's generated when you're lasering. So that's a technique that he'll use several points throughout the run. A particular note in stage 5, he'll be using it a few times.
I believe that last B was to control hyper. He didn't collect it with his chain active.
Yeah, most likely. So he's trying to delay his hyper drop until the start of stage 3. Yeah. He's also going to be hypering during the boss for a number of reasons. It increases your score dramatically.
You can see the hits going right up.
Yeah, it increases your hyper buildup. So he'll probably build up a full 2 hypers during this boss, which would mean he would start stage 3 with 3. And it also, in my personal experience, makes the boss's first patterns much easier to deal with.
A bit so, yeah.
Because those bullets tend to linger on the screen for a very long time. So yeah, you'll see he has, I believe, only 2 saved up now. So there'll be 2 hypers dropping at the start of stage 3.
Yep.
Now, when he was playing in Tokagi, he did not go for the bonus battleships in stage 3, but the last couple days I have seen him going for it. Yeah, so here you go. Getting right up on this battleship with hyper, going for the second battleship that you only get if you kill that first one fast enough, and even the third one that you only get if you kill the second one fast enough. So that's very, very high level, pretty dangerous to do since you do have to be right up in their face, and you do have to burn hypers in order to kill them quickly enough.
Man, collecting that beat right at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, so his B timings, generally he's going to want to collect them as low on the screen as possible, right before they're about to scroll out, just so he has that extra couple seconds to build up some more hits. That's a very consistent thing the whole run. You just saw it right there.
Yeah.
And again here, probably we'll see him do the same thing. So this section of Stage 3, relatively straightforward to chain, but his chain value is already at 500, which is exceptionally high for this point. So he already has, I believe, 2 hypers stocked once he collects this one.
So we'll see if he's going to be going for it. I don't think he is. Yeah, I don't think he is. This is not the right setup, yeah.
No, yeah.
He's going to forego chaining the Stage 3.
He will probably try to pick up a chain again in the later half of the stage, but I suspect he won't hyper, and instead he'll save his hypers for the opening of Stage 4, which is much more lucrative in the long run.
That's what a lot of white label players do.
So this mid boss is it's aimed mostly at you, so you can just do small taps to avoid these rings.
Wow, is he milking these?
I don't know. I don't know what he's. Interesting. I've never seen that delayed before.
Yeah,
I wonder if it's like Ketsui, where you can get more of the Zako to spawn if you delay it. I don't actually know.
I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe he was trying to generate hyper, a third hyper.
It could be, yeah.
On that.
He got the hyper to drop, he wanted to collect it during the mid boss where it was safe. That would also make sense. So there's another hyper coming up here, which again he'll probably wait to pick up. The links here are pretty challenging. You'll see a lot of what he's doing is kind of lasering things, then moving off of them and immediately starting to shoot, just so you can connect those timings, especially from these big carriers onto the smaller guys. Now these giant streams of bullets.
This link in particular is very, very crazy.
Yeah, so these giant streams of bullets we're seeing out of these popcorn enemies.
Makes it look so easy.
He makes it look so easy, but it's very disorienting the first few times you play this stage. Once you kind of get a feel for it and how they fire, it becomes easier. But it's definitely a big wall for new players, is this part of Stage 3. And yeah, that link was
an
extremely
ingenious
good.
link. I've never seen that before.
So here he'll use a safe spot.
Yeah.
Now, the position of that safe spot varies a little bit depending on what version of the game you're playing, what your hyper rank is, etc. But generally speaking, bottom center or slightly off bottom center is where it's going to be. So here he's going to kill that battleship on the left, which will cancel all the bullets, let him move over, grab the hyper, then kill the one on the right, then move down the middle, pick up the hyper, and pick up the power-up. Now he's got a full 5 hypers here, which is great news for Stage 4, but it does mean that he cannot afford to die to this boss.
Yeah.
Without compromising his scoring potential dramatically. So, that said, the Stage 3, 1-3 boss is relatively doable. The last pattern is pretty tricky.
The last pattern of the cheese graters is pretty. Yeah.
It's
pretty tricky. The first phase is actually pretty standard. This is actually, I think, one of my favorite bosses in any STG. It's just so.
I would agree.
The first phase is just very fun to do.
Yeah. Now, note he's macroing out of these patterns. Normally, you see players going in between those bullets there, but he's avoiding them altogether.
Yeah.
All right, now this pattern is quite interesting. Note that he was sitting right up on the boss there. That's probably to do a little bit of extra damage using that laser aura.
Those are the cheese graters I was talking about.
Yeah. So one thing that I learned actually during the Tokagi stream is that these red bullets that come down, whoa, very, very nice dodges here. Those red bullets that come down in the arcs, it does a set of 3 going one way, so like a set of 3 coming to the left, and then a set of 3 going to the right.
Yeah, and it changes on.
And it changes on that third one. So,
you want to adjust what direction that's going first.
Yeah. So let's see.
He'll be hypering. Boom, hyper.
Yep, hyper up at the top, exploiting that invincibility, and then exploiting that invincibility of the enemy at the bottom just to get a few extra hits out of that power-up carrier, which is super cool. Does mean that he doesn't get the power-up there, but since I believe he's already at max, he doesn't need it at this stage in the game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Coming through here, the opening of Stage 4 is interesting. There's a number of routes for it, but this is, he's already at 1,000 hits. This is definitely extremely lucrative if you come into it with enough hypers. And he's already got 2 in stock since he had those saved up from the opening and from the boss fight. So, again, just sliding over those beasts at the bottom at just the right timing. One thing to look out for, the turrets and the small enemies on this stage, like the small tanks, watch how fast they fire. The hyper rank has already come up quite a bit, how we're getting these, pretty dramatic lines.
I think he's going to go for the hyperlist strat. I'm not sure.
He usually does go for the hyperlist since it's more lucrative to hyper later in the stage.
Yeah.
So here, this is historically one of the most challenging parts of Dodonpachi Daioujou is chaining this section of the game. You have to very intentionally delay your kills on enemies, and especially if you're going for the hyperless route, which is what he's doing here, you really have to have a very acute understanding of where things and when things are coming.
It's extremely methodical.
Yes. And one thing you'll notice is that he has to actually destroy the...
Oh, he lost
Oh, no! Oh, bummer. Okay. That's going to hurt. One thing you'll notice is that he's actually killing the enemies on top of those trams before he takes out the trams themselves. And that's because the hitbox of the tram does not actually activate until after the enemies on top of it have been defeated. So here, activating his hyper there, pretty standard opening for this section. He's going to want to try to go through here and leave a couple tanks. There's going to be a row of tanks that moves along that kind of pathway in the background. He's going to want to leave a few of those alive so that he can chain through the mid-boss. So the mid-boss is also the one and only fixed 1-up in Dodonpachi Daioujou.
Yeah.
To get that 1-up, it's not just defeating the mid-boss, you have to defeat the mid-boss without damaging the center part with a bomb. You can technically bomb during it, but you can only destroy the sides with a bomb, and of course you don't want to.
And he kept the chain too.
And what he did there was he kept the chain by triggering his hyper at the right time, hypering off of those bullet casings as they were coming through, and then just delaying it long enough that he could start hitting that
It's
big
very tricky
door.
because those dual casings are random on where they appear.
Yes.
And now he has to chain through what I think is probably the hardest. Even like the second hardest part is these rails.
Yeah,
I believe these rails are random, but the way the popcorns come out are not.
Yeah, the popcorn is fixed, but the pattern of the turrets themselves is randomized. So coming through here, I mean, even with that drop, he's at 1500. So his chaining is still excellent. Obviously.
Is he doing this without a hyper? Oh god.
Yeah, nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Remember I told you couldn't do that without a hyper? I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's hard. It's doable. And intentionally dropping here so that he keeps his hyper timings in check. If he'd gotten those two Bs with his chain up, he would have had another hyper drop, but he actually doesn't want that. He wants one hyper.
I think he's going to be using the charge for to avoid an attack.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which attack, but maybe.
That is definitely one common possibility, especially in the second loop. You see players do that. We seen him do it, I should say. Because again, when that hyper gauge fills all the way up, it will cancel all the bullets that are currently on the screen. So in the second loop, usually you want it to happen during that attack that just finished there. Now, the reason he wants one hyper here, during this phase of the boss, it's going to at one point shoot out a series of small drones. And if they're in the correct pattern, which is 3 drones, space, 3 drones, space, 3 drones, right here. See
here?
Yes,
he's got a good pattern.
So if he hypers on top of it, the aura buildup from that will create 4 additional hypers, and over the course of the whole boss fight, potentially 5. So he wants to sit on top of those drones as long as possible and get as much hyper gauge as possible. Like he's already at 4, almost 5, and 5. Nice.
Full 5, and now he's just riding out the chain.
Yeah, now just exactly riding out the chain, building it up as high as he can. 6.7. Really, really, really solid.
Do you have to no-miss the first loop for a good score? I think for the first loop you get a mil per coin, per live. Anyway, stage 5.
Yep. Picking up all those hypers, collecting them, moving down and over. The opening chain in stage 5, pretty straightforward just because there's so many enemies here. The link into the next part is a bit harder. There's going to be these 3 big ships that come down.
It sets your base for the whole stage, yeah.
Yeah, you really want to keep up your chain in stage 5. This opening is so lucrative, and the later parts of the stage are so lucrative that you just, the middle section is a little bit less full, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Basically, you have 3 mid-bosses in this stage, and each mid-boss incurs a challenge of his own.
Okay. I don't think I've seen him hyper there before.
You know, ever seen him hyper here before?
In that particular spot.
Some players do this.
But that's a pretty consistent way to chain into this mid-boss, which can otherwise be challenging to do. Otherwise you would have to delay killing some of those Zako.
Yeah, this is definitely the ballsy way of doing it.
Yep. And again, because he was still in hyper at that point, he was able to carry that chain through onto the flying enemies.
And he had to end it right there, or else it would not have worked.
Yeah, if his hyper had, failed just a second or two beforehand, and if his timing had been off at all, that would not have carried through. Now here coming up on the honeycomb, which is
the beehive section.
Yeah, another historically challenging
very
section.
tricky challenge. It's very methodical and how you must pursue it.
Yep, and I believe he's also going to go for the bottom edge hitbox trick here with one of these guys.
Yeah, he'll be doing it at the end on the mid boss, most likely.
Yes. So this section, once you get a good feel for it, isn't super challenging to survive, but chaining through it properly still takes quite a bit of. This dodge! Wow, nice.
That was some risky shit.
Yeah,
risky.
that was a bit risky.
Anyways, here he's going to be delaying his shots to keep that middle thing alive, so he can use it later to exploit.
Yep, and that hyper right there gives him some invincibility, some breathing room, so he can move around it. And now he's going to drop down and just milk the points off of that big guy at the bottom. And over the course of this mid-boss, he'll get a few hundred hits.
He'll get double the hits. Yeah.
Just from that trick alone. So, and there we go. The little mini-boss is out. Now this is coming up on the second mid-boss in Stage 5. This approach, you really want to have a hyper drop in here. The most common solution for chaining into this mid-boss is to delay this and then hyper. And then if you come into this with a hyper, you're able to use that hyper to kill all the little drones that it fires. And you actually want to have a hyper leaving this. Yeah, here we go. All these little drones.
He hypers into these things.
Yep, and you want to do that, otherwise they just clog up the screen.
Be sure not to leave one alive.
Yeah, oh god, yeah, I've done that so many times. And then coming out here, you want to have a hyper because otherwise it's very, very hard to keep your chain up. You have to delay the kill on the mid-boss quite a bit. So again, looking at the rank, I mean, look at how these Zako are firing. These little tanks even are just shooting these giant walls of bullets at this
Yeah.
rate. So here, getting right up in the faces of these enemies, really trying to milk as many hits as he possibly can off of them as they're still at the top of the screen. Oh man,
And Stage 5 chain's always so cool to see. It's very fun to do too.
Oh, he's just right up in there. Yeah.
I think he's keeping the sides alive for another exploit.
Yeah, he may be.
Not sure.
At Tokaigi, he did the invincibility thing on this tank as well, and I think he's going for it again, which is so scary because it can. Just barely not, just barely too early when he dropped down onto it, but he had it otherwise. Also, chain value over 3,200. This so far has been a perfect Stage 5 chain.
Yeah.
Here we go, getting right up at the top again. Once again, if the enemies are at the very top of the screen, you can get extra hits off of them because of the aura damage from your hyper, and they're invulnerable for a short period of time. So this section at the end here can be quite challenging, even though it's relatively straightforward. The patterns that these guys shoot, especially at higher rank, the way that they overlap and interact with each other is quite challenging.
Very good Stage 5 chain.
Yeah, so here
the final boss, Koryu, I believe the name is Koryu.
Yeah, Koryu. Yeah.
Or Hachi.
Hachi is the one after this.
Okay.
So in the first loop, he'll only fight Koryu. In the second loop, he'll fight Koryu, then Hachi, and then Hibachi. So interestingly, that opening pattern that we just saw there, it changes very dramatically with hyper rank. At lower hyper rank, it's actually more difficult because the walls and the holes don't line up correctly.
Yeah, they do. They don't.
So
this pattern's always just what the hell.
Yeah, this pattern, I don't really have any strategy. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
See, that's like one of the aspects is like, what the hell is this pattern? But I don't think it matters too much, and actually it might be better for him because he has 2 bombs now.
So the other thing is he probably will plan to suicide and bomb out this boss anyway. It doesn't really matter because in White Label, you want to come into Stage 1 with a hyper.
Yeah, you do.
Into 2-1. You absolutely need that because you need to have 4 hypers to quick kill the Stage 1 boss. The Stage 2-1 boss, I should say.
So there's this hyper right there. He just got it.
Yeah, so he has 1 hyper in stock now. He may even... Okay, I was going to say he may even die again, but looks like not. So yeah, he has that hyper. Now what he wants to do here, again, this is what it all comes down to right now. If he makes a mistake in this stage, it is over, and he doesn't even have a bomb to save himself.
Now, Stage 1 in itself is not... It's not the worst thing in the world, but I think the stress of knowing if you mess up, you got 20 minutes behind you. You got to do all over again.
Yeah. And you've also, you don't have a chance in that second loop. You can't continue.
Yeah.
In White Label, you cannot continue in the loop at all. So you can't even practice if you have a bad credit. It's just over. So notice just how many more bullets everything is firing. There's easily double from every enemy, sometimes triple. You see some of these Zako are firing little 3-way spreads now. So in general, the chaining in the loop is more relaxed because the chain timer is, I think, almost fully twice as long as it is
About
in,
so,
in
yeah.
the first loop.
I would say so.
So he's able to do stuff like not even bother with lasering here because he's powered up, and because the chain timer is so long that he can afford for these enemies to live around for a second or two. But the real challenge with the second loop is just survival and getting those no miss, no bomb stages, because you will not get any lives back if you don't either no miss or no bomb the stages. And again, if he dies here, it is all over. So this is
Spooky.
very spooky. And the stage 2-1 boss in particular in White Label is extremely scary. But so far he's handling this stage incredibly well. You don't want to hyper in 2-1 in White Label because you need those hypers for the boss. So his chain counter will be lower than it was in the first loop. That's just kind of a natural byproduct of the strategies that you need to survive in this game.
By the way, Benay, yes, if you
Are we back? Is audio back? Yes, we're back. Okay, cool.
audio back.
Yeah, so look at this bullshit. Look at this boss. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, so he's not going to go for anything fancy here. He's just going to try to hyper, do as much damage as he possibly can, use that invincibility. And again, you do extra damage for each hyper. I believe it's actually like 20% or 25% for each additional hyper. So when you have 4 or 5 hypers, you're easily double the amount of damage.
Pretty much, yeah.
So against that boss, with its patterns are so scary in this loop. And you notice he got that extra life. He has a little bit of breathing room now, but he still doesn't want to make any mistakes. In the loop, it's so demanding. It's so scary. So yeah, coming into 2-2 with those hypers, one advantage of that is he'll have a very high chain.
Very good chain base, yeah.
Yeah, and much easier to carry his chain through in the loop. So hopefully he'll be able to carry through and score a little bit better here, make up for what he lost out on in the first loop. Mm-hmm. So, and again, note that he did not need to do anything fancy with the power up there, both because his shot power didn't actually change and because the chain timer is so much more lenient now. Even if it had, his chain wouldn't have dropped. So.
I'm just kind of mesmerized right now. Sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty great to watch.
Yeah, keeping a shot here because, like you keep mentioning that, the shot just allows you to. Sorry.
No problem.
Just allows you to keep a chain just so easily.
Yeah. So and here he won't even worry about keeping those enemies alive on the side because he'll just be able to carry through just off of that power up carrier because again the chain timer is so much more lenient in the second loop. So.
Tap 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 tap.
Yep.
Tap,
So
tap, tap, tap.
yeah, these patterns are they look pretty scary. If you overthink them, they're pretty scary. But if you just take them nice and cool, and he looks like he's doing pretty okay over there. So yeah, I think he's even going to try to milk the hitboxes on the bottom edge of the screen here again in the second loop. Looking at the way that he's not damaging them. Yeah, here we go. There we go. Extra hits off of that, and extra hits probably off the other side as well. So very nice. Yeah, there you go.
Yep, just chilling.
But just look at these walls of bullets that the enemies are throwing out. I mean, even the simple tanks on the ground are not to be messed with in the loop. So, and then grabbing that B at just that last minute there. 2,600, very, very respectable chain. I think that's pretty close to perfect in this stage.
All right, so stage 2-2, the boss. Oh my God.
Oh, this boss is a massive
He's keeping
dick.
this bomb alive to bomb around, so he could probably just double bomb it. So hypering it off the bat, and if he gets a good pattern, he'll probably bomb. Yeah, right there.
Yep, and then pick up that bomb.
Oh, he didn't get it. Oh my God.
He didn't quite get it.
Spooky. Might need to result to a hyper.
Yep, it might come back within reach.
Okay.
All
right, now he's going to go up here to kind of misdirect the waves above.
Yeah.
And then he's going to quickly go down. Oh.
Okay, yeah, I've seen this.
Hyper
yeah.
and just, oh my God, that was beautifully done.
The misdirection and the invincibility, yeah, very, very masterfully
I didn't know
done.
about that second part. That was beautifully done.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Oh my God.
Now coming into 2-3. So yeah, this from this point on, this game is just throwing everything at you. I mean, look at these waves from this battleship.
Yeah, not even going to bother with the bonus ships.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't actually know whether it's possible to do a full chain in 2-3 in White Label. I suspect it probably is because the chain timer is so much more lenient, but I do not know. Oh man. Ooh. So one thing you'll notice is, in general, in these later stages where he has a bit more breathing room since he has a couple lives in stock, the basics of the routes that he's taking will be pretty similar to the routes that he had in Loop 1. It's just, oh yeah, there's the drop.
Not gonna bother with that again.
Yeah. They're pretty similar to the routes that he had in Loop 1. The main difference being that he just can be a little bit looser with his execution for the most part because there's so much more time to do things. So here, you'll notice he's delaying his kills against this mid-boss. He wants to avoid blowing off these claws while they're firing and while those middle things are out because it makes this pattern so much harder to deal with.
And I believe this is a space safe slot only exclusive to this ship.
No, it actually works with the other ship as well, but you have to move slightly towards the end of that pattern. Although actually, it could be I'm thinking of Black Label where they swap the boxes.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. So. Man, yeah, it just gets so dense. But just very nonchalantly, like, yeah, this is where I live. This is where it's at. Oh man, wow. So bringing it in here, these coming parts are a bit scarier in the loop. The same basic strategies still apply. He's going to be delaying the kill there, misdirecting these three, and then there is still a safe spot here. But I believe it's off center. It's a little bit.
Or it may need to move a bit. Oh yeah,
it's off center there. And this next part here plays out pretty much the same. Again, going for one side first, kill the big ship. Oh, okay, that is not expected. He still has some resources, but that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, he's gonna need a backup plan for that. Anyways, going into stage 3 boss.
Yeah, so this boss's patterns are quite a bit more challenging in the loop. There's just so many more bullets. A lot of the techniques that we would use in the first loop are just not as applicable. The same basic idea is there, but it because it's kind of delayed over itself and out of phase, like this pattern becomes so much more challenging just to even read visually in that loop. So, and here going in between, because the pattern has such a wider spread, you can't really macro it very effectively. So the final pattern, the cheese grater, as you called it, this is pretty gnarly in the loop.
I wonder if he'll do the safe trick here. I wonder if he'll play it safe.
It would not surprise me, given
if you wait until
it
says just a couple more shots, you can just go up and hyper it and be okay. But I guess he's not going for it. He's going all out.
This is what did Plasmo say the other day? Man mode.
What?
Plasmo said man mode about something. It was good. I think it was Plasmo.
Some dude behind us got really excited.
Yeah, very very nicely done. So now coming into stage 4, 2 stock. Definitely not the best position he could be in, but having seen him recover from much worse situations before, I'm pretty confident that this is still going to turn out to be a very solid clear. So you got this. This opening, playing it a bit more safe. Not hypering, not doing anything particularly crazy right now, but still going for a full chain. And again, just how much more of the stage is walled off to you in these later stages in the loop. Just everything shoots so much more. You really have to be much more careful about how you're moving. Very nice.
Sorry, I've got a bit of loss for words. Just watching this. It's so.
Yeah, it's pretty mesmerizing.
Yeah. Now he's gonna have an easier time chaining this stage, mainly because of the easier
the more lenient timing on the chain. Yeah, but I mean,
don't expect a break here.
But it's still, not trivial at all, especially just because of just how much, again, is being thrown onto the screen. But yeah, there you go, through half of it. And still going for the Bs everywhere he can, just maximizing that score. At this point in the game, Bs are the only advantage you get from the Bs is the hyper drop, which of course is still a huge deal. Oh yeah, there you go. Yep, and again, hypering back up here, again, because it's just so much more lucrative. There's so many more enemies on screen. So he already has another hyper queued up, which he will, again, try to have drop during that mid-boss fight and try to use during that mid-boss fight. Even with the more lax chain timings in the loop, you still do need a hyper to connect out of it into the rest of the stage. So getting right up in there, trying to take out the sides. You'll see he's much more focused on misdirecting this pattern. Because it's so much denser. But again, that hyper, and he's even burning that extra hyper that he had. Just because it was not safe to go for it. So, and here again, he will be trying to chain.
Anyways,
through.
Rails.
The rails.
2-4 rails are another very, very tricky part.
Yeah, I mean, just look at how much of the screen is filled up. Oh yeah, there you go. They just completely clog it up, and then when they die, they really force you down that very narrow path, or you have to dodge between these very dense lines that they drop. So this is absolutely an extremely challenging section, and not surprising to see a death there. I think SMC actually said in the chat that he would not be surprised if there was a death
he
here
can't bomb here. Like, he already lost a life, so he cannot bomb, or else
he cannot
not
bomb.
get an extend for the next stage.
Oh, nice. Very nice. And here again, we might see him... and also note his chain did not drop.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention
So,
that.
in the chain drop does not actually happen until the chain timer goes all the way down. It doesn't care if you die or not. So in the loop, since the chain timer is so much more lenient, I mean, it can even technically happen in the first loop, but it's much less common.
Yeah.
But in the second loop, since the chain timer is much more lenient, you'll sometimes see that where the player will die, but the chain will actually keep going, and they're able to pick it up again once they respawn. So here against this boss, I believe he'll be going for the trick again, which is really scary. Oh, no, there you go. Safety hyper, I imagine? I'm not quite sure. But he's still able to build some gauge off of it.
It is really crazy that he did that without a hyper, though. The cannon.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yeah, he's still
got
going up on
he
here.
got his, he used his hyper early, I believe, just to avoid that attack.
Yeah, just as a safety thing. So
he lucked out that he
Iconoclast,
got this pattern.
Iconoclast in chat is saying that dying in stage 3 messed up his hyper management. Yeah, his timings are not quite where they should be, but he's pretty on point with them regardless.
That's the thing with White Label, is that if you die, you need a backup plan, and then you'll need another backup plan for your backup plan.
Yeah. How much resources does he need for Dodonpachi? Question from Fogmanatic. Very nice. Yeah.
I think he's at the bare minimum.
Yeah, he's, I believe I've seen him, okay, I have not seen it, but I believe that he has done a no miss or a one miss, like a very minimal clear of Hibachi, but it's extremely challenging. Certainly not something reliable. Generally 2 or 3 lives probably is where you'd want to be safely. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different player. I know there is a player who's done a no miss or a one miss of the DOJ Hibachi, but it is definitely not a reliable thing. So.
Oh my God, going big dick.
Yeah, just going for it. But
if you delay the kill on that cannon, this pattern will not spawn, and you could actually take it easy.
Yeah. And same basic strategy he used in the first loop to chain into here. Okay, yeah, Bananamatic, it may have been a one miss that I'm remembering, but yeah, I mean, again, just look at how filled the screen is. It's really very tricky to maneuver when you're this late into the game.
I guess he's not hypering here to adjust for timing later.
Possibly. He might also be trying to save it for the later stretch of this.
That is true, yeah.
Because I think he may go for the invincibility hitbox thing again. Oh man. Yeah, some of these cutbacks in this section, particularly in the loop, are just crazy. He's handled it quite well so far. I mean, his timing on all this is very good. Yeah, he's going for it again. So he's going to be, again, trying to pop up here, drop that hyper, sneak around. Oh, he killed it. It was a little bit too low. I believe it was by accident.
A little nervous.
And no surprise. I mean, this is this is a hell of a thing to be trying to do in front of a live audience. Whew, very nice. And he built up another hyper there, which is good because he will definitely need it against this this mid boss. Has he got those 2 Bs yet down there? I don't know if he did. Maybe I just missed it.
Huh?
I was wondering about the 2 Bs in those top 2 hexes. I didn't see him get them, but maybe he did. And then anyway, again here, just the same basic idea. Whoa.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. I was saying, like, there's an issue where if you keep one alive, it could mess you up. But I think he's too smart for that to like fall for that.
Yep. Oh.
A man with this many hours into this game.
Oh God, these walls.
Yeah.
All right. Very nice. And just again exploiting the hell out of that hyper invincibility. Getting right up in the face of this stuff, killing it as soon as you possibly can.
God.
You know, both for points and for the extra hits. So again, so far, I don't think that he's dropped in stage 5, in 2.5, has he?
I'm sorry?
Has he dropped in 2.5?
He has not dropped it yet.
Yeah. Wow. So.
However, it doesn't really matter if he dies or bombs here because it's the last stage, so...
Well, except for...
Well, except, yeah, I mean,
Hibachi.
like, technically...
Technically.
You're not getting an extend at the end, but yeah, you do not want to die here.
Yeah, you want to save everything you can at this point for the true last boss here. So for those who are not familiar with the term or who are not familiar with the Dodonpachi series, this series of games often has a secret final boss after you defeat what is the normal end boss. So traditionally, if you go through the game, you fight a certain boss at the end of the final stage. And then if you go through the loop, you'll fight that boss again, and then also another boss after it. Sometimes another 2 bosses after it. So in the case of Daioujou, you'll see Koryu again, who we're about to have come on the screen here, and then Hachi, and then Hibachi, who's the very famous true last boss of the Dodonpachi games.
Here we go.
Yep.
Crowd's getting hype.
Woo! I wish we could see the crowd. I really wish.
So this is Koryu's first attack, yeah?
Yep. Very, very precise movement there.
It's generally a safe spot right in the middle.
Yep.
You generally the safest in the middle.
Yep, bomb. Yeah. This pattern is just really gross in the loop. So
I think it's way nastier than White Label.
Coming through it, and some of the interesting things to note here is his hyper timings. I don't know if that is intentional, but his hyper timings
probably is.
Are
He'll need it for Hachi.
Yeah, he definitely needs them for Hachi and Hibachi. So I know he for sure plans to get one during this boss, but I don't know whether or not it was planned at that exact moment.
All right, so just getting through this. Got to get through this.
Oh, nice.
Stay in the middle. All right.
Yep.
And he's on
All right.
to Hachi.
Now here's Hachi.
Basically phase 2. Oh god.
So what we'll probably
so Hachi
see
has
here,
this nasty first attack right here.
Yeah, and then he'll probably try to bomb, collect the hyper, and then use the hyper in the center.
Yeah, most players would bomb during this pattern, but it looks like not fufufu. Holy shit.
Oh.
And then he's going to use a safe spot right up here. He's going to be point blanking the boss.
Very
getting
nice.
that aura damage in.
And now Hibachi.
On to Hibachi. Oh my god.
Wow. Very, very nice play against Hachi there. So this is where it gets
He'll
really
most likely
crazy.
Bomb.
Yep, bomb,
and he's gonna
grab
wait
the
out,
hyper.
He's going to time it out.
Needles of Death.
Yeah.
Use the invincibility from that hyper.
This
build up
is
another
possible.
hyper.
Yeah.
And now he's onto the spirals here. So he's already built up another hyper. He's going to want to collect that as soon as possible after this hyper ends, or even possibly after he dies, because that is a very real possibility at any second here. Now the timing here, cutting through these spirals. Oh, yeah, there we go. That is not unexpected. It's extremely tight.
He might be okay.
He should be fine, yeah. I mean,
now
Hibachi's already
attack.
half dead. Now we're on to the washing machine, the famous and absolutely horrifying final attack. Using that bomb, good bomb. Coming through here, just trying to survive as long as he can. Now there's another hyper dropping. He's going to want to try to go for that.
He's gonna probably die and then go for the hyper.
Probably die, go for the hyper, use the hyper invincibility as much as he can. Is this his last life, or does he have one? He has one stock. I can see it there.
Left, and he's gonna bomb.
He's going to bomb.
Oh, boy. Bomb.
Nice dodge
And
bomb.
he's just going to dodge as long as he
dodge
can.
as long as he can. Oh my God!
Oh, he's
There you
got
go.
this. He's got this. He's just a point blank.
It's in the bag.
And there we go, boys. There we go, boys. White label cleared. Holy crap.
What a fucking maniac. Wow.
Crowd's going nuts behind us.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but the crowd is... Woo! Woo! There you go. Wow. Yeah, what an absolute insane run here. Wow.
Absolute insanity.
Yeah, you wow. Wow. All right. That was something else. So, yeah.
Yeah, that happens.
That was great. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm very curious what the final score ended up at. I don't
I believe it'd probably be 1.4 mil.
Yeah, Bill, you mean billion, you mean.
Billion, yeah. Bill. Jesus,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, it definitely looked like it was 1.4. It's a little hard to tell because the capture that we had was slightly cropped.
Yeah.
But
wow, look at that crowd.
yeah, look at the crowd. Ah, crap. There we go.
Look at that. That whole left section too. It was completely filled. Wow.
Yeah, that is an intense run. Just oh man, I can't even imagine what he must be feeling right now. You know, I talked with
relieved.
Yeah, I talked with Yam before the run, and he said that that fufufu was actually very stressed out about it. He was very nervous. He wasn't sure if he'd be able to pull it off. And I didn't want to say anything on the stream. You know, I don't want to jinx it, so to speak. But you know, not only did he do it, but he did it in spectacular fashion.
He did it excitingly.
Yeah.
You know, I know those deaths weren't intentional.
No, definitely not. Possibly, you know, the suicides in Loop 1, yes.
At the end, yes.
But definitely not anything in Loop 2. Just recovering from it in the way that he did.
Yeah.
Even with the offset hyper timings and still going for full chains in stage 4, full chains in stage 5. Just truly spectacular play.
It shows the persistence of man against unsurmountable odds. He is the man. Fufu is our man.
He is.
He's our boy.
Is.
When the going gets tough, just persevere. Now he's gonna do it again.
Yeah, and he's gonna do it again tomorrow. So, yeah.
All right.
I cannot even imagine what that's like trying to do
Here's
this
our boy
again.
now.
Here we go.
Fantastic run. Thank you. No problem. I might be heading off here. Thank you for having me soft drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Yo, shout out to my mom. Take care.
ここでいいです。Maybe you want a chair? Should we switch?
I'll just
Probably heard it.
crouch down, I guess. So first of all, thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. It looked those deaths too. That looked a little scary. Looked like it maybe offset your hyper timing a bit, but absolutely spectacular finish. Thank you so much.
どうもありがとうございました。なんかこの2周目に死んだ時はみんなもうドキドキしてもうクリアできるのかなと迷って結局すごかったです。
It looks like my mic wasn't working. Is it working now, guys?
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay. So, did he get any information about what this is, or did he just come right back here?
Did you guys tell them what this is?
I can. My name online, I go by Soft Drink. I am part of a YouTube show called STG Weekly, and we talk about shooting games. We try to promote them in the West. We try to show replays of super players and explain what they're doing.
いやこちらはなんかソフトドリンクさんで、この番組は STG Weekly で YouTube でなんかいろいろシューティングゲームの解説したりとかする。
We've actually covered you before. I was part of a group of people who did commentary for your WASSHOI Tokaigi 2015 run. We restreamed it in English and did commentary.
なんかワッショイン東会議2015の時で、彼らは英語で、配信の説明してた。フフさんのプレイで。
YouTube の動画見たことあります。はい。
So yes, he saw the YouTube video of that.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So yeah, very cool to be meeting you in person.
やっと会えて嬉しくと思ってる。
ありがとうございます。
How are you feeling before your run, and how do you feel now, looking back on it?
なんかプレーの前と、
はい。
プレーの後はどういう気持ちでした？
そうですね。まあプレーの前は意外と観客席が結構遠くて、まあ落ち着いて普通にいつも通りな心境ではありましたね。そんなに緊張はしてなかったです。はい。
So I didn't get that worried before starting because like the viewer seats are pretty far, so we could just concentrate on the game itself.
でプレーの後はなんか本当に良かったって気持ちでクリアできてよかったっていう気持ちでいっぱいですね。はい。
And now that the run is finished, I'm really relieved that it went well.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, it seems like everyone really loved it here, and everyone clearly loved it when we were broadcasting it here. So thank you so much.
もうなんか席の客もライブの客もすごく盛り上がっててよかったです。
はい。いや盛り上がってくれて本当嬉しいです。
I'm very glad that everyone seemed to get into the run.
So at this point, I would like to ask chat if there are any questions that you would like me to ask. I will definitely do that. In the meantime, how long have you been playing Daioujou?
このゲームはどれぐらいプレイしましたか？いつから？
スコアを狙ったプレーは確か2009年くらいからですね。そしてその間ずっとこれをやっていたわけではなくて別のゲームとかもやっていたので、実際のプレイ期間でいうと7年以上8年未満っていう。はい。
So I've been playing this game for Score since 2009. Not all the time, but in total, probably between 7 to 9 to 8 years full of trying to score this game.
Wow. So I'm sure that you get this question often, but why do you still play White Label when Black Label exists? Many people consider Black Label to be the fixed game, so to speak.
多分よくその質問がされるんだけど、
はい、
なぜブラックレベルがあるのにまだホワイトレベルやってますか？なんか普段のプレイヤーだと、はい、ブラックレベルの方がなんか一般的なゲーム。
はい。そうですね。なんかこうゲームをするとき、アーケードでゲームをするときってとにかくなんか自分にとって挑戦の価値があるゲーム、チャレンジングなタイトルっていうんですかね。はい。そういう点で難易度が高いゲームは結構好きなので、それでブラックレベルではなくてホワイトレベル。はい。
So I really like challenge. So between the choice of white and black level, I prefer to go for white level, which is way more challenging.
How long have you been playing shmups in general?
シューティングゲームはいつからやっていますか？
そうですね。弾幕シューティング始めたのは17歳。はい。
So I started the 弾幕 shooting at 17.
Okay. So we have one question in chat. Do Japanese players use emulation to practice ever, or what is your opinion of it?
チャットからの質問だけど、
はい、
日本人のプレイヤーは
はい、
エミュレーションは使っているのかどうかな？
なんでしょう プレイヤー人それぞれということで、はい、ちょっと答えにくい質問ですね。
This really depends on each player's opinion. I think the opinion is very varied in Japan.
Okay, what is your personal opinion, if I may ask?